So it's been requested to cover a lot more full-size related keyboards, from 96% to 100%. And in my quest to finding keyboards from every price range, I actually stumbled upon the Koorui MK104. It's actually a keyboard that comes in around $30, but sometimes goes on sale for as cheap as 15 bucks. So I figured pick it up, and let's take a look at it. So, jumping straight to the contents of the box, the first thing you're met with is your user guide. This will give you all the information about your keyboard, how to use your function keys, set up your RGB, or connect it to your computer. It's a handy guide, so make sure you set that aside while you learn the ins and outs of your keyboard. Next up is your keycap and switch puller. It's actually surprising at a keyboard at this price range. It is hot swappable, so you will need a tool if you plan on changing your switches or modding the keyboard. It's definitely handy. If you don't have one, make sure you don't lose this one. Next up is a set of switches. You have a couple extra switches that are included in the keyboard, of course, but you also have other options, which is slightly confusing because you can't really outright buy these from the company, so I don't know why you really need them, but you have them. You also have your USB-C cable. It's nothing fancy. It's your standard edition USB-C cable. It's nice. It doesn't feel super flimsy, which was, surprising. And that brings us to the keyboard itself. Now, as you can see, it's a full-size keyboard with dedicated media keys as well as a scroll knob. The knob controls pause and play as well as volume. Kind of wish it was mute, but we got pause and play, which is not bad. Now, it is a very light keyboard and it has a ton of flex. If you're bending it, it really bends. Now, I didn't hear any cracks or anything when bending it, but do note, don't be too hard on this keyboard. If we flip to the back, it's got a really cool X'd out design right here with the company's information right here in the diamond. I do like that. It's not a bad look. And then we also have single stage flip up feet. Now, I do want to note these lock in place and they're pretty solid. I've seen keyboards 3 times the amount of this keyboard that didn't lock as well as these do. So that's a really nice touch. I do dig that. One thing I don't dig is the little cutouts here that'll look like for other models, maybe a wireless model. But regardless, we also have really cool RGB fins on the side for extra lighting touch. And then our single USB-C connector right on the top. It is recessed, so be aware if you're going to run an aftermarket cable, it might not fit in here. So that's an overview of the keyboard itself. Now, one thing I would like to note is it definitely feels budget. It feels cheap. And not in a terrible way, but more of like you get what you pay for. But another thing I really noticed is when you start typing on it, there's really this weird feeling like it doesn't have the right amount of flex. Like if you push down, it's got a little bit of flex, but like not normal feeling flex, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not huge into flex. I really like a stiff keyboard, but it was just something I noticed when pressing down on it. But regardless, I think we need to hear out sounds, and then we need to take it apart and see what we're working with inside. So let's head over and give it a listen to what it sounds like stock out of the box. Okay, so now we've heard of stock, let's go ahead and dive into some of the components of this keyboard, and I'll give you my thoughts and initial impressions of the keyboard. First, we'll take off a keycap, and as you can see here, they are a shine-through keycap. They have okayish legends, but they are super thin, and this is a common problem with shine-throughs. Shine-throughs for me are always thin, and it produces a sound signature and a typing feel that I'm not really a fan of. Now, there are some shine-throughs that aren't too bad, but these definitely aren't it. In fact, they're so thin, if you flip them over and take them off and then press the sides, you can actually bend the keycaps. They're that thin. Like, you shouldn't really be able to do that. Now, our other problem is our switches. Now, first and foremost, I didn't order the browns, I ordered the reds, so that was kind of surprising for them to show up. But nonetheless, we're going to work with what we have. If we take it out, you can see that it's your standard brown switch, and it's just like every other brown switch. Now, these are branded from Koorui, but they're just your standard brown switch, just like an Atamu brown or just like a cherry brown. They're a light tactile bump. They're not really desired by a lot of people. I don't mind them as long as they're treated nice, and these definitely aren't. These feel scratchy, they don't feel good to really type on, so we're going to need to lube these. We're going to open them up just to double check to see if they are lubed or if there's anything been done to them, but my suspicion is I don't think so. And once we open up our switch, we can confirm that it's definitely dry as a bone in here. No lube in sight. We also confirm it's set up like every other brown switch on the market, so that's also not surprising. I mean, besides the fact that we got brown switches when we were expecting red switches. But overall, the typing experience so far is kind of an up and down. It's got a slightly weird typing feel to it, but it also has really scratchy switches and really bad keycaps, but the stabilizers sound and feel pretty good, and the overall typing sound actually doesn't sound as bad as I thought it would. So it's kind of a roller coaster. So I'm excited to keep diving into the keyboard so we can see what's going on the inside. And once we have our switches out and our keycaps off, we can check out what's going on. The first thing we notice is the plate is actually the top of the case. So that probably explains why there's slightly weird, mushy / like bounce but no bounce. And it's because there's no real plate. But we can also see why our stabilizers feel pretty good, and it's because they look really lubed. They look generously lubed and confirmed they actually feel pretty good. They didn't have any weird sounds, and they didn't feel like they rattled a lot. They were actually pretty secure in the top plate case thing as well, so I thought that was pretty much a win. So we're actually going to leave those alone. We're not going to touch those because they feel pretty good as is. But we need to continue diving into the keyboard and see what we're working with on the inside. And also I'd like to note that this part is pretty simple. To get in the keyboard, all you need is a Phillips screwdriver because it's only held in with Phillips screws. There's no clips or anything like that, so once you take all the screws out from the top of the case, it actually comes apart pretty easily. So it's a nice touch. Now we have all of our screws out, we can just simply pick up the top of the case and the bottom falls right off. And there we go. You are in the keyboard itself. Surprisingly easy, and I do love that. For a cheaper keyboard, I like to be able to easily get into it so I can mod it, which is a cool touch. Also, your side RGB slats do come out, so be aware if you are going to take it apart, those do come out pretty easily. There's no clips holding them in, so make sure you don't lose those if you do take this apart. But regardless, we can take a look at the case now, which surprisingly, there's nothing in there. So we'll set that aside and we'll just focus on our PCB and our plate / case. Now, first thing I like to note is your USB is part of the PCB itself, so there's no daughter board, so there's no wires to disconnect. But here's a tricky thing. To get your PCB separated from the case, there's these little tabs. There's these little tabs all across the top of the case, and you need to pinch these in to get them to fall out or to remove the PCB from the top. So I grabbed a small set of tweezers, and just squeezing them, you're able to pop them right out. It's a little tedious, and sometimes it's hard to spot them because they're like right next to where the screws are, but it's really simple. Once you get the hang of it, you just need to go through and tweezer those, and the PCB will separate from the case, no problem. And just like that, our plate and our case is now separated from our PCB. Also, we can confirm that our plate and case are the same piece of plastic. Also noting that it's super flimsy. Like, this is pretty fragile. So just be careful with it when you're using it outside of the case. Set it somewhere safe while you're working or modding on the keyboard itself. From this point, we can also look at our PCB, and we can definitely tell that there's nothing going on. We do have north-facing RGB, we have 3-pin, 5-pin hot swap sockets, and we have our standoffs that we squeezed out of place. But other than that, there's nothing going on when it comes to filming or foams or anything like that. There's no adhesive whatsoever, so you're pretty much free to mod this any way you want. However, I would like to see some film and such with other keyboards coming in with just a little bit of a higher price tag. At $30, we're really starting to see a lot of keyboards that are starting to include films and foams. So being at that price point compared to others, you really need to kind of step it up, in my opinion. But it does make this part really easy for modding because you don't have to really undo anything. So that's a good point if you look at it that way and you plan on modding the keyboard. But all in all, so far, it's still a mixed bag. There's some things I like, some things I don't like. But let's go ahead and try to fix some of the things we don't like. So let's start off with some mods. And for that, we're going to grab our case. And I'm going to grab some polyfill to start with. Now, to be honest with you, this brand of polyfill I am not a fan of. It's rolled into little balls and it kind of drives me nuts to work with. But regardless, this is a really budget polyfill for a budget keyboard, so it kind of matches. We're also going for a little bit of a deeper tone for our keyboard, not a true thock, but just something slightly deeper than we're currently receiving or getting. So we're going to do one layer of polyfill, and then over top of that, we're going to actually use 2mm EVA foam. I simply got this from the hobby store. It's very cheap if you buy it by sheet. It's also really easy to use, as you can just press it over any of your bars or any of your standoffs. And then you can also just press it against the case to get a nice even cut line. It's super simple to work with. I honestly, if you feel like skipping the polyfill for this part, I don't think it makes a huge difference for this type of keyboard, to be completely honest with you. But I had the polyfill around and I wanted to use it, so we put it in here and hopefully it'll make a slight difference. Now next, heading over to the PCB itself, we're going to do a simple tape mod. Super simple to do. Again, this is just masking tape or painter's tape. We're going to do 2 layers total across the entire thing. We'll trim it to size and put it all back together. Once we get everything back together, it's time to put our lube switches back in. That's right, I did open up all the switches and lubed them. Now that we have our switches in, we're going to focus on keycaps. We're not going to stick with the stock ones. We actually picked up these gradient purple shine through keycaps from XVX. They were on sale for $10. So bringing our total for this keyboard to about 27 bucks, which isn't bad. Now these keycaps are much thicker. They do retain the shine through. They don't bend or anything like that when you press them or squeeze them. Again, they do have front-facing legends instead of top-facing, which I think is a cool touch. The color is really even. It's side to side and edge to edge. I don't see any chipping or warping. And honestly, it kind of just makes the keyboard pop. It looks a lot cooler with this keycap set on. So I'm stoked to see what it sounds like with the mods and the lube switches. So let's go take a listen. So, what are my final thoughts? And honestly, it's kind of in the middle of the road. It really depends on what you're looking for to get out of it and what your intentions are with it. Now, if you're looking for a cheap mechanical keyboard that you can tinker with, or just use for casual office work, or just chilling at your desk, and looking for a full size on a budget, it's not a bad option. I think out of the box, it sounds all right. It's not great by any means, but I've also heard and felt a lot worse. So for that, it's kind of in the middle. Now for potential, it's got a lot. As in, it's really easy to take apart. It's really easy to mod. You can do a lot of things with it. You can change out switches, change out keycaps, put different stuff in it, take stuff out of it. So for you, it's kind of endless. Now, there is no software, no VIA support or anything like that, so you are limited on that front. So you will just get the keyboard the way it is right out of the box. You're not going to really be changing any of that stuff. So if you really want to deep dive into the keyboard and how it functions, this isn't going to be the keyboard for you. But again, if you're looking at a $30 budget or a $40 budget, this isn't really what you're looking for in a keyboard in the first place, I would assume. Now, honestly, I think there are other keyboards out there. There might be hidden gems that could potentially be better than this at a $30 price point. But as of right now, I really don't know any that come close to this at $30. I've definitely felt a lot worse keyboards in that price range. And honestly, I felt a lot better, but none of them were full sizes. And that's the caveat. And it's kind of the honest place where the market is. The fact is you can get things like the Kissant for $30 when it's on sale, and that keyboard feels and sounds amazing and has tons of support. But it's not a full size. The full size is kind of slept on. Anything from a 96% and up is really difficult in this price range. But that's also where you come in. Do you know of a keyboard that's a 96 or a 98 or 100% that's slept on in the community? Is there a keyboard out there in this size and price range that people need to know about, or that you think is the gift that just keeps on giving? I really want to know, and I'm really curious. I want to keep diving into 96, 98s, and 100% keyboards to really find the gems. Find those wow moments that you're super surprised that this is what you got for the money you spent. And we're going to keep searching. So, as I said before, if you can help, drop a comment below, let me know what to take a look at, and I'll keep going. I'll reach out to companies, we'll see if we can get keyboards in, we'll do more reviews, and we'll see if we can really find a solid option. But that brings us to the end of this video. And if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching. If you guys drop a like and hit subscribe, it would mean the world to me. If you want to check out this keyboard itself, it'll be in the link in the description box below. And that's it. The end. Thanks for watching. And remember, keep keyboarding.